Dorotabo was an ugly abandoned child working as a slave in countryside until he awakens his sealed demon god powers and decides to look for his parents. However, before any of this, some kids chatter excitedly about the new fancy detective coming from Tokyo. One kid tells Yataro that the detective might even be coming to hire Yataro since he is so smart and rich, but Yataro just laughs this off. The kids ask Yataro if they can come by later to see the detective, and the ever so humble Yataro allows it. He then turns to the fields and calls out another kid named Dorotabo that he cannot come, to which he agrees. The already so popular detective named Inugami gets stuck on the road due to a flat tire. The hostess of Kanoko Inn picks him up. On the way, she tells him that the dead bodies of animals have started appearing and that other animals have started to disappear as well. She then goes on to say that nothing has been told to the children yet, as she didn't want them to get scared. Upon arriving at the inn, Inugami notices Dorotabo working in the field. He calls out to him, but Dorotabo just bows to him in reply and goes back to work. Inugami asks the hostess about Dorotabo, but she tells him that she'll share the details later. Later, Inugami takes a bath in the hot springs when Yataro comes to him. He washes Inugami's back and then starts yapping about his ambitions and his desire to go to the city when he grows up. Inugami inquires about Dorotabo again, and Yataro shares that Dorotabo gets covered in manure and dirt while working in the fields, because of which he is called Dorotabo, and that he smells horrible. Later, Inugami requests the hostess whether he can get Dorotabo instead of Yataro as his helper. With that, Dorotabo is made Inugami's helper. He takes a bath and then goes to serve breakfast to Inugami. He introduces himself and then asks Dorotabo whether he has seen anything strange in the fields. Dorotabo replies that he will share the details later since he doesn't want to spoil Inugami's meal due to his smell. Inugami laughs this off while commenting that he used to live in an all-guys house where everybody smelled. Dorotabo then shares the details that 6 animals have died so far with their organs all chewed up, and that he always has to dispose the animals after the new moon, so there's a possibility that something may happen during the next new moon as well. Inugami then decides to wait for the next new moon. Meanwhile, Inugami starts to work with Dorotabo and help him in all his work. The hostess gets shocked at this, and the kids wonder why Inugami would do such a thing. One day, Inugami asks Dorotabo about the stone he wears around his neck, and the loner Dorotabo replies that the stone has been with him ever since he was a baby. At least something was with him since he was young. Dorotabo tells him that he was abandoned by his parents, and Inugami asks him whether he can have a look at his stone. Dorotabo hands him the stone, and Inugami remarks that the stone is called Life Stone, which is a precious stone formed under special circumstances only. He explains that stone is not given to anyone who would be abandoned, and tells Dorotabo that he was not abandoned. Inugami then asks Dorotabo whether he'd like to meet his parents, and Dorotabo replies that he is not sure, but he'd probably like to meet them. On the new moon night, Dorotabo waits for Inugami, and Yataro approaches him. He starts yapping that Dorotabo is getting in his way and that he should know his place since he was abandoned. Dorotabo replies that he was not abandoned, and Yataro snatches away his life stone in anger. Suddenly, Dorotabo punches him while his eyes turn red and half of his body turns into a monster. He tells Yataro to give him back his stone, to which Yataro gets scared and runs away. Dorotabo finds his stone lying on the ground and suddenly becomes normal once again. Inugami finds Dorotabo, and he confesses that he is the culprit all along. Inugami, being the world's most unpredictable man, turns around and pulls down his pants. He shows Dorotabo his tail and then pulls his pants up. He explains that there are beings called kimono who lurk in the shadows but interact normally with human beings, and that Dorotabo is a child of a human and a bloodless demon called Cooler. He reveals himself as Baked Daniki, and that Dorotabo's stone restrains his thirst and stops him from attacking people. He then tells Dorotabo that the animals were attacked by another monster. Dorotabo tells Inugami that Yataro is also outside in the fields. Meanwhile, Yataro runs away with the speed of light. He recalls that when he was a kid, he had killed Dorotabo once by pushing him into a canal, but rather than blood, some white liquid had poured out, and that Dorotabo come back home for lunch. Suddenly, 2 dogs-like monsters attack Yataro. He gets thrown on the ground, and Inugami, arriving on the scene, shoots at one monster. Dorotabo blocks the second monster, and Inugami tells Dorotabo that coolers can only be killed by removing their necks. In a second, Dorotabo whacks the monster's neck away. They see another monster who resembles a deer. Inugami shoots at it, but the monster dodges the bullet and attacks Inugami. Inugami gets away and shoots again and again at the monster. Just then, Dorotabo rushes at the monster and thrusting his hand inside the monster's mouth and breaking its neck. Inugami takes Yataro's unconscious body to the inn, and Dorotabo comments that he can no longer stay in the village since all the killings will be pinned on him. Inugami comments that he was actually hired by the hostess to kill Dorotabo since she knew from her sister that Dorotabo was a monster. Inugami asks Dorotabo his real name, to which he says Kabane. Inugami asks him once again whether he would like to meet his parents. Kabane just smiles and asks Inugami to kill him. With that, Inugami shoots at him. Inugami then delivers Yatero to the hostess and informs her that Kabane has been killed as per her request. Kabane wakes up in the back seat of Inugami's car and Inugami tells him that Kimono cannot be killed by getting shot. He dramatically comments that Dorotabo has died but not Kabane. He then takes Kabane to a bar in Tokyo and shows him his office. He gives Kabane some clothes to wear and gives him a perfume to cover his kimono musk. Inugami then heads out and Kabane changes into his new clothes. Just then, two kids barge in the office and ask Kabane who he is. Inugami introduces Kabane to the lavender-looking kid called Shiki and to the bright blue head named Akira. He tells him that they are kimonoists, and that their job is to take on cases related to other kimonos who may have gone rogue or to perform mortuary services. He then asks Kabane whether he'd like to join him. When he tells the kids that Kabane is a ghoul, Akira exclaims that Kabane is just like Shiki, who is also a Hanyo. Shiki gets frustrated at this and asks Kabane to give back his clothes. He then barges off to his room and announces that Kabane can sleep on the sofa. Akira apologizes for Shiki's behavior, and the loner Kabane comments that Akira is a really pretty girl. Akira starts to cry that he is not a girl but rather a boy and barges off to his room as well. Later, Shiki eats a pizza and tells Kabane that he doesn't like him much, as if it wasn't obvious already. Shiki asks him to eat the pizza and Kabane shares that he's never had pizza. Shiki gets shocked to hear this, so he insists Kabane to eat the pizza. Later, Akira tells Shiki that either Kabane must be really strong or he must have nowhere to go just like themselves. Shiki decides to investigate this enigma. He puts a string in the hallway and Kabane gets caught in the string. He then asks Kabane what brought him here. Kabane answers that he couldn't live in his house any longer, to which Shiki pathetically starts to yap that his parents must have abandoned him. Kabane tears himself away from Shiki's string, injuring himself in the process, while telling Shiki that he was not abandoned, which seems to be Kabane's anthem at this point. Kabane's injury heals instantly and he heads away. The next day, Inugami rushes off to a job and takes all the kids with him. They reach the crime scene and the police let all of them in as specialists. The crime scene room is sealed and Inugami notices that two kids sit in the corner looking scared. He peels back the tape to look at the crime scene and asks the children to do the same. They notice 3 bodies lying inside the room covered in bugs. Inugami explains that the bugs are called Senshitsu bugs, who have a favorite dish that they like to feed on, and that the dish must be inside the room. He remarks that if he takes out the dish, the bugs will leave, but the chances of saving the people are 50-50. The police explain that one of their members went in to rescue the mother and the child, but the bugs attacked him too. The policeman suggests burning the bodies to stop the bugs from spreading. One of the kids yells that the bodies are still alive and that his mom wouldn't die like this. Shiki suggests being the hero and taking on the bugs. He releases silk from his hand to make a web inside the room. The annoying bugs start to feed on his silk and Inugami shuts the door immediately to stop the bugs from coming out. Kabane then suggests being the hero and going in. Inugami allows him and even advises him to remove the item at the center of the swarm. Kabane heads in and instantly the bugs march at him, covering him from head to toe. Inugami explains that the paralytic injected by the bugs cannot work on coolers like Kabane since he doesn't have any blood, and that coolers also don't feel any pain. Kabane picks up the item in the center and raises it. All the bugs scatter immediately and Kabane notices a child lying in the arms of his mother. The police is called inside and the other 2 kids rush at their mother. Kabane sees the family and wonders about his own parents. Later, Akira comments that the bugs were feasting on some shoes and Inugami replies that the bugs like to feast on guilt, hence the shoes must be stolen. Just then, the older kid runs up to them and thanks them. Inugami hands him back the shoes and tells him to tell his brother not to shoplift. The older brother starts his sob story that his brother shoplifted the shoes for their mother, who used to wear worn-out shoes with holes in them. He explains that he yelled at his brother about the shoes, causing his brother to become really guilty, and the bugs attacked his brother then. He goes on to say that his mother then jumped on his brother to save him, even though she hated bugs too. Later, Kabane asks Inugami whether he can meet his parents if he works for him. Inugami tells him he can and teases him that he will deduct his fees from his pay. Shiki also explains to Kabane about his powers. He explains that his mother was a spider kimono, and that's why his sweat and saliva generate spider silk. Kabane tells Shiki that their parents might be alive, and Shiki gives him a reality check that their parents didn't want to be responsible for them. Kabane tells him that at least now he knows his parents didn't abandon him and that he doesn't want to extinguish this new hope. Shiki, getting bored of all the sentiments, gets up to go to bed and asks Kabane to come with him so that he can show him his room. Later, Inugami calls a woman and tells her that he is taking in a Hanyo who has a life stone with him. She asks him whether he is a threat and Inugami replies that he may be their star of hope instead. Inugami asks Shiki to take Kabane to meet Inari, and as always Shiki whines about this. Inugami explains that Inari is a fox kimono who has power within the police. Before leaving, Inugami also gives Kabane a good luck charm. Meanwhile, Inari arrives at the police station and the whole police force lines up to receive her. The chief thanks her for all her help, and as a reward Inari tells them that they can sniff her aroma. Shiki, the gang's big brother, takes Kabane and Akira to the Shinjuku police station where the policeman tells him to go away. Just then, another girl called Kan arrives and asks Kabane only to come with her. Kan takes Kabane to meet Inari. When they reach the meeting room, Kan kicks Kabane inside the room and then shuts the door. Kabane takes a seat and Inari introduces herself. She then starts to rant about Kabane's past and then comments that she'd like to see his life stone. Kabane hands the stone over to her and Inari asks him whether he knows what the stone does. He replies that the stone prevents his thirst. Inari explains that kimonos live off of the energies produced by humans and that with a life stone, kimonos won't need humans anymore. Kan attacks Kabane from behind and slices his head off. She then calls 2 police officers inside to deal with Kabane. One of them carries his body while the other one tucks his head in a briefcase. Kan volunteers to carry the briefcase. She starts pathetically ranting that Inari is like a mother to her, so she'd like to help her. Inari calls Kan a good girl and Kan become happy to hear this. Inari then comments like a creep that kimonos won't have to coexist with humans if they have the life stones in large amount. She tells Kan to deliver Kabane's head to her room later and to deal with Kabane's friends. She then heads out. In the reception, Shiki starts to become frustrated, which is his usual norm. Just then, Kabane arrives with a briefcase in his hand. He tells them that he has to deliver the briefcase to Inari's room later. Shiki teases him by asking whether Inari, the old woman, has baited him with something. Kabane becomes furious to hear this and his face suddenly changes into a fox. Shiki and Akira freak out at this and Kabane realizes that he has accidentally turned into a fox. The fox face disappears and Kan appears instead. She comments that she'll have to kill them both now. Kan jumps back to the railing more like a monkey than a fox and throws a fireball at Shiki and Akira with her tail. She keeps throwing fireballs at them and they run away to dodge them. Kan tells them that everyone who steps inside the building are enthralled by Inari, because of which they won't notice any fire. Shiki, never the one to back down, comments that he really hates the old lady cause of all such illusions. Kan gets triggered again and throws fireballs at them with her tail. Shiki and Akira run away to dodge the balls once again. Shiki uses his silk to pull the sofa and other furniture towards him to build a fort. He then uses his silk to pull Kan's briefcase towards him. He opens the case to see Kabane's face casually lying there. Akira faints on seeing this while Shiki gets shocked. Kan, with her mommy issues, gets triggered once again, thinking that Inari won't call her a good girl anymore since she has lost the briefcase. Her face turns into a fox and she lunges at the place where Shiki and Akira are hiding. When she doesn't find them, she starts to go berserk. Shiki takes Akira and Kabane to the upper floor. Kabane creepily asks Shiki to throw his head at Kan and that he will deal with her. 2 days in Tokyo and boy already has the riz. Shiki isn't convinced, but then reminds himself that maybe Kabane can do it after all. He approaches Kan with Kabane in his hand. Kan screams at him to give Kabane back to her and he throws Kabane like a football at her. Kabane bites her shoulder and Kan falls to the floor like a drama queen. Shiki picks up Kabane and notices that the fire around them has disappeared. He realizes that the fire may have been an illusion, but then he notices a burn on his hand. Kabane then resurrects himself back. Shiki hands his coat to Kabane and they bump their fists to celebrate their victory. The 3 of them head out where they meet Inugami, who tells them that he expected something similar to happen. He then asks Kabane what happened to the charm he had earlier given to him, and Kabane replies that Inari took it with her. Meanwhile, Inari creepily coddles the life stone and rants that she will make a whole family out of the stone. Suddenly, the stone turns into an accessory. Just then, Inari gets a call from Inugami, who teases her that she couldn't even figure out his little shape-shifting trick. He then tells her she owes him one since she has betrayed him. He also warns her that the stone belongs to Kabane only and that she will have to deal with Inugami himself the next time. Meanwhile, back with the kids, Inugami suggests to give a welcome party to Kabane. An injured Kan makes her way through an alley and mutters that she is a good girl who has to deliver the head to Inari. Inugami takes the kids back after the party and Shiki and Akira complain about eating too much food. Inugami explains to Kabane that he gets customers through web search, word of mouth, and similar other methods. He adds that their office sign light also helps attract kimonos and humans that have been empowered by the humans. Just then, an injured Kan approaches them. She then collapses on the ground. They take her in and she gobbles up all the food like a fat cow. She then jumps on Kabane to take his head, but Inugami holds her back. He tells her to step down from the table and clean the table since Inari would want that too, and she follows his instructions like a dense cow. Just then, a human with a weird scent comes inside the office and Inugami announces that they have a job. The new customer called Yuruno lounges drunk inside the bar and Kabane comments that he doesn't know why half of the office is a bar. Shiki explains that Inugami once ran the detective agency with a partner and that the bar was the partner's idea back then. He also tells Kabane not to ask Inugami about the partnership as it's a sensitive issue. Hiruno starts to whine pathetically that he loves a woman but he doesn't know anything about her. He then goes to the washroom and Akira comments that he likes a good love story. He teases Shiki that he was also born out of love between his kimono mother and a human father. Kabane the simpleton then tells Inugami that if he goes with Hiruno to learn more about love, maybe he can get to know more about his parents too. Father Inugami replies that Kabane can have the case if he wants. He tells Shiki and Akira to support Kabane in the case. He also tells Kan that if she helps Kabane in the case, she can have his head as a reward. Hiruno agrees to the arrangement. A mouse passes by Hiruno's feet and he jumps after the mouse. His face morphs into a cat and he beats the mouse up. Akira sees this and rushes to the toilet to vomit his guts out. Hiruno apologizes to the group and tells the group that he's collecting the mice to give them as a gift to his girl, since what could a girl like more than mice? Inugami remarks that Hiruno is the work of a kimono called Nekomata who turns into an attractive man or woman to seduce people. When Akira comes out, Inugami asks him to leave the assignment because he can't handle disgusting stuff. Akira starts to whine lamely that maybe he's just getting in the way, and Inugami, once again coming to the rescue, cheers him up by saying that he will ask for his help if the job involves a cute monster. Hiruno takes the team to a restaurant and tells them that the woman he likes called Mao works in adult establishment. Kabane and Kan, the two dense heads, start to head to Mao's working place, but big brother Shiki stops them. Hiruno tells them that the place doesn't allow children and that they should wait for Mao since her shift should be ending soon. Just then, they all spot a cat outside. Shiki tells them that it's the Nekomata and that the cat is their target. The gang approaches the two-tailed cat Mao in the alleyway and Kabane introduces himself. He then explains that Hiruno has fallen in love with her. Mao then turns into a woman and tells Hiruno that he didn't have to go through all the trouble since she was planning to have him join the ranks soon. A group of ugly-looking fat cats appear behind Mao and she tells Hiruno that she will take care of him. Mao comments that the cats were all men coming after her just like Hiruno. She then remarks that her seduction must not have completed since Hiruno has not turned into a cat. Simpleton Kabane replies that it's not Riz but rather love. Mao laughs at this and just then, Kan jumps from above. She catches Mao and brings her over to Hiruno. She asks Hiruno to state his terms. Hiruno starts to cry but his face suddenly changes into a cat. He shows Mao his bag and tells her that he has brought the mice for her. He then starts his sob story that he was a pathetic loner before he met Mao and that he has no attachments with his life as a human. He goes on that Mao is a ray of light for him and that he has no problem if he turns into a cat in order to live with Mao. Mao and Kabane both get surprised to hear this. They leave the lovebirds and return to their office. Inugami asks Kan to close her eyes. He then shapeshifts an orange to make it look like Kabane's head and gives it to her. She then goes away with Kabane's head. Inugami asks Kabane what he learned about love and Kabane in return gives him pocket tissues. He tells Inugami that love is like light and that Inugami has taught him that life can have meaning too, which is like light to him. He then remarks that people give others beneficial things and he gave tissues to Inugami so that it might benefit him. Later, Inugami informs the kids that Hiruno has gotten together with Mao officially and they have started living together. He tells them that other cats will return back to human in a week too. Akira informs Inugami later that he has become Kabane's apprentice. Shiki tells Inugami that Sensei Kabane threw out a cockroach for Akira, which inspired Akira. Inugami says that he has a job which involves investigating unnatural deaths of construction workers working in Shibuya River. Akira starts to chicken out, but when Kabane says he will go, Akira declares that he will go too. Inugami then informs Kabane that many buildings were built on Shibuya River and then the construction workers started splitting the river and that all of this may have made the indigenous inhabitants angry. Kabane arrives at the river and Akira follows him covered in a hazmat suit, being the coward he is. As expected, he gets scared easily as he follows Kabane inside the river sewer. He tells Kabane that he reminds him of his twin brother and that he had come to Inugami's place to find him. He goes on that he belongs to a female clan in Aomori Mountains where the males were born every 100 years only and that his brother got separated from him when they were fleeing the clan. Kabane asks him whether he can manipulate water and snow and Akira replies that he can only freeze water's surface for now. An ugly-looking toad attacks Akira and pulls him up. Kabane throws a rod at him and he lets Akira go. The frog attacks again and Tanuki appears suddenly. He jumps at the frog, causing him to fall in the river. Tanuki, who is actually Inugami in animal form, gives a bottle of blood and a letter to Kabane stating that the indigenous inhabitants are frog kimonos who have gone rouge and have to be killed now. Akira declares that he will help Kabane and won't back down. He pours the blood into the river stream and a group of frogs jump out to attack them. Kabane and Tanuki fight them while the wimp Akira just gets scared. He recalls that his brother had told him he was weak while he himself was strong and to let the strong protect the weak. Akira then yells that he wants to help Kabane and he releases his powers. Everything around him gets frozen, including the water and the frogs, to which Kabane compliments him. Meanwhile, an old frog kimono thanks Tanuki for getting rid of the rogue kimonos and tells him that their souls can rest in peace now. Kabane mops the hallway when he recalls that Inugami had told him never to open the door at the end of hallway. He reaches the door and just then, a hand reaches out and drags him inside. When Inugami hears from Shiki and Akira that Kabane has gone missing, he rushes to the hallway. He enters the storeroom and spots Kabane serving a man named Mihai. He scolds Inugami on not telling him about finding a maid like Kabane sooner. Mihai introduces himself to the kids as the vampire who works in it and who watches over their office. He then orders Kabane to be his wait person and Kabane agrees. Inugami takes all the kids out and tells them that vampires like Mihai are superior kimonos who possess superhuman-like knowledge and physical ability. He tells them that he had invited Mihai to his office after he had gotten bored from learning about everything, and that Mihai takes care of the office website and also protects their phone data from getting hacked by Inari the Creep. Shiki gets mad at Mihai for treating Kabane like a slave and eats his ear off by making complaints, which is his usual norm. Mihai tells Shiki that if he can win against him in arm wrestling, he will let Kabane go. Mihai beats Shiki instantly and Kabane asks him to wrestle him. He beats Kabane too, and Inugami tells them that Mihai is just toying with them since he has brute strength. Kabane wonders how he can become strong just like Mihai and how he can protect his friends. Just then, Khan falls from the tree. She starts to uselessly rant about her mommy issues and tells Kabane that when she had taken Kabane's head to Inari, there was already another kitsune kimono there. On Kabane's suggestion, they both fight each other and Kabane punches her face at the end. Khan starts to whine for the 100th time that she is weak and that no wonder Inari hates her. She then begins to cry loudly and simpleton Kabane holds her hand. Mihai comes to Inugami and tells him that he cannot play his game since Kabane broke his wrist, which will take a week to heal. He goes to Inugami's laptop and accepts a job on his behalf to trouble the kids. He then asks Inugami to come to his room so that he can explain his plan. Meanwhile, Kabane wakes Khan up and tells her that she doesn't have to go back to Inari and that Father Inugami can take her in. She tells him that a kitsune like her can't live together with a tanuki like Inugami and that she can live together with Kabane instead. That Tokyo Riz seems to be working after all. Kabane tells Khan that he will come back to her after doing a chore. He then heads back to the office. In the office, Shiki tells him that they have got a new job while commenting he wants to try something new. Shiki arranges a setup with heater and lights to make the place hot. While sweating gallons, Shiki then suddenly turns into a heater as well. He comments that he had seen on the internet that some insects can mimic the objects around them and he wanted to give it a try too using his silk. Mihai then briefs the gang about their job that they have to retrieve information about a company where 16 workers killed themselves last year, but the number mysteriously declined to 0 this year. Meanwhile, Inugami is locked inside Mihai's room and is unable to get out. Kabane and Akira sneak inside the company building where they stay back on standby while Shiki takes the lead. He uses his silk to open the window latch and then sneaks inside using his camouflage. Mihai also designates a transparent emote-controlled toy car to Shiki as his partner. Shiki notices a light and peeks inside the room to see rows of tires-looking employees working on something. Just then, an employee rushes out and a lady called Manager Kaga stops him. She tells him to share his problems with her and takes him to her office. Shiki follows the pair and the manager takes the employee to a counseling office. She turns on the light and an ugly-looking big fat fly suddenly jumps on the employee. The fat fly sucks the employee's brains and the employee collapses on the floor. The fat fly then turns into a woman and another woman called Momoka whines that she hasn't had a sip all day. Manager Kaga tells both of them to file the usual report to the CEO and Momoka suggests to suck out the useless CEO's brains as well. Somebody needs to tell Momoka to calm down. Manager Kaga tells them that they need the CEO to serve as their front. The employee then gets up and heads back to where he came from. Mihai goes to the storeroom where Inugami is locked and asks Inugami whether he knows about any blood-sucking mosquito kimonos. Inugami tells him that Kananba are mosquito kimonos who feed on blood, brain, and other organs. Mihai leaves Inugami and then lies to the kids that Kananba kimonos don't feed on any blood or organs, so the kids should let them lie. He comments that the reason why the workers' suicides decreased was because their brains got sucked out so they couldn't think anymore. Kabane suggests to take out all 3 mosquitoes while Shiki argues that they should fall back for now and come back after forming a plan with Inugami. Kabane agrees and Shiki starts to head back. Mihai gets pissed at Shiki's cautious behavior and decides to meddle uselessly. He uses his remote-controlled car to make noise, and the Kanambas come outside on hearing the noise. The fat mosquito lady spots the car first and hides it from the others. The Kanambas decide to scout the building to find anything suspicious, and they head in different directions. Shiki starts to panic, and just then, the fat mosquito lady spots him. She tells him that she doesn't have any choice but to kill him. She attacks him, but Mihai's car speeds at her and electrocutes her. She falls down and Mihai notices that Shiki is still panicking and not moving from his place. He realizes that Shiki must have some kind of past trauma. Shiki remembers walking with his mother when he was a kid, but he doesn't remember how they got separated. He thinks to himself that something terrifying must have happened if he can't remember, and that deep down he is afraid of scary things. Mihai tells Kabane and Akira that Shiki is in danger. They rush to find him and come across Momoka at the basement entrance. Meanwhile, Shiki is pathetically paralyzed with fear. Mihai tells him that mosquitoes have a paralytic in their saliva which numbs the person, and that a person can't feel anything even if his organ or blood is sucked out. The fat mosquito starts to get up, and once again Shiki tries to move himself, but he fails. Kabane drags Momoka by her hair like a true champ and calls Shiki. He asks Shiki whether he is okay, and then comments that Shiki can easily beat the kimono since he beat one too. Mihai starts to add spice to the mix by telling Shiki that Kabane will feel disgusted and pity to see Shiki cowering like a coward. Shiki comes to his senses and whacks the toy car to shit Mihai up. He starts to bleed and his fear subsides. The ugly fat mosquito jumps at Shiki, but he dodges the attack and vanishes once again. The mosquito turns on her sensitivity to detect Shiki, and she starts to detect him everywhere around her. Shiki comments that he knows mosquitoes can detect sweat to lead them to their prey. The mosquito starts to attack randomly in frustration and soon gets stuck in a web of silk made by Shiki the Spider-Man. Shiki then appears above her and jumps on her head. He kicks the ugly fatso and she falls unconscious. Shiki recalls that Inugami had once told him that he had found something about his parents, but Shiki had just avoided the topic. He wonders whether he is ready for the conversation now. Kabane and Akira approach Shiki, and Shiki shows off his non-existent powers. He ties up Momoka with his silk and the group discusses what to do next. Kabane suggests going after Kaga and Shiki agrees with him. Just then, Kaga walks towards them. She apologizes to the kids and asks them whether they can just go away without revealing the secret to anybody. Kabane tells her that it's his job to stop her. She then turns towards her mosquito sisters and sucks the fat mosquito lady's brains out, not that she had a brain to begin with. She turns towards Momoka and casually sucks her brains out too. Kaga comments that her sisters were spoiled and that she's not going to let some children have her food pantry. She then turns into a big, bulky, ugly-looking mosquito. She walks towards the group and Shiki throws silk at her, which she quickly dodges. Kabane runs at her and tries to attack her vitals, but she grabs him instead. He struggles to get free and she pierces him with her antenna. Shiki throws silk at her again and she kicks him away. Akira lunges at her and tries to use his freezing powers. The idiot realizes midway that he can't freeze Kaga without water, and Kaga kicks him away too. Shiki and Akira both collapse on the floor. Kabane realizes that if Kaga defeats him too, she will go after Shiki and Akira and kill them both. He struggles to get away from her and even breaks his arm. Mihai then decides to bestow some words of wisdom on Kabane. Mihai tells Kabane to stop using his human senses and to just follow his kimono instinct, his heart. Kabane gives into his kimono powers. His hair turns red and power flows through him. He grabs Kaga's arms and rips them away. Mihai tells him that the power is his true essence, and Kabane then turns back to normal. Mihai lets out Inugami, and Father Inugami tells Kabane to back down and to let Inari handle the situation since they were only hired to investigate. A kid Kitsune called Nabamaru approaches Kabane just then and tells him that he works for Inari. Nabamaru touches Kaga and she gets reduced to ashes. He tells Kabane that he cannot leave evidence any behind. He then burns the other two sisters to ashes too and tells Kabane that the workers will be helped by them as well. He tells Kabane to take Shiki away since he seems to have used too much of his powers. Kabane wakes Akira up. Meanwhile, Nabamaru notices Mihai's car. He whispers to Kabane to be careful of Inari since she hasn't given up on his life stone yet. Kabane asks Nabamaru why he would tell her such a thing, and Nabamaru tells him that he doesn't like Inari. Kabane agrees to keep this a secret and then takes Shiki back to the office. Mihai tells Kabane and Akira that he lied to them about the mission being easy on purpose and then gaslights them that he lied to make them stronger. Inugami compliments the kids that they did a good job and warns Mihai not to meddle with the kids ever again. He then asks the kids to go take a bath and the kids leave. Mihai teases Inugami that since Inugami knows how to kill a vampire, he can kill him anytime if he wants him to stop amusing himself with the kids. The creep is competing against Inari at this point. Later, Kabane, who is unable to sleep, recalls the defeated faces of Shiki and Akira. He goes to Shiki and then to Akira and listens to their heartbeats to make sure they are alive. The next day, the incident appears in the news while Kabane follows Shiki everywhere like a puppy. Shiki gets frustrated at Kabane and Akira tells him to cut Kabane some slack since he is only worrying about him. Kabane then remembers that he had left Khan waiting and runs to meet her. He tells her about the mission and that he had forgotten about her. Khan gets sad to hear this and several koi fish fall from the tea near her. She tells Kabane that she had caught the fish to eat together with him, but they had become rotten. Nabamaru looks at the scene from a distance. He comments that he had even warned Khan to be careful and that they were all fox kimono in the end. Shiki approaches Inugami and asks him about his parents. Inugami takes the kids to Shiki's birthplace. Shiki tells everyone that he used to live with his uncle before coming to Inugami, and before that, he used to live with his mother called Kumi in the area. They reach Shiki's birthplace, and Inugami goes away to search for an inn. Akira searches for a souvenir in a shop, and Kabane notices a book with a folktale story called Nishikagumo. He reads it out loud that once there was a boy named Shige who found a spider in his room. He gave whatever food he had to the spider, and when he woke up the next day, he found gold silk in his shack which he sold in the market and became rich because of it. Inugami approaches them with Shiki's uncle called Akio. Akio complains to Shiki that he doesn't write often to him. As they pass through the forest, Shiki hears a woman's voice calling his name. He ignores it like the dumb brain he is. Akio later introduces himself as Shiki's father's brother. He tells the gang that long ago he and his brother went into the forest to research about Nishikagumo folktale when they came across Shiki's mother. Inugami takes Kabane and Akira away so that Shiki can talk alone with Akio. The children eat ice cream while waiting for Shiki, and Kabane comments that big brother Shiki will be alright. Just then, Shiki approaches them and asks to have ice cream like the certified glutton he is. Akira, never the one to shy away, asks Shiki what's up with his parents, and Shiki tells them that both his parents have passed away. He tells them that as per Akio, his father passed away before he was born, while his mother died when he was 5 years old, leaving Shiki with a trauma since he must have seen Kumi die from up close. He tells the group that he expected this and that a weight has been lifted off from his tiny shoulders after getting to know the truth. Kabane tells Shiki that he's acting unusually cheerful, and Akira tells Kabane to not point out any such thing since Shiki is putting on a brave face for them. Shiki tells Inugami that he left Akio by the riverbed and that he looked like he was about to cry. The kids take a bath later, and Nabemaru the pro stalker joins them. He introduces himself and then takes off his earphones and towel. His fox ears and tail pop up, and he tells the kids gang that he's the lowest of Kitsune since he can't even hide his ears and tail. Kabane, being the loner, tells Nabemaru that it didn't seem like he was the lowest, and Nabemaru smiles at this comment. Nabemaru suggests the group to go out and explore the local area since everyone seems to be feeling down. They go to see the fireflies afterwards, and Kabane thanks Nabemaru for the idea since he also didn't know how to cheer up the group. Shiki notices a haunted-looking tree and gets a flashback that he used to run by the tree when he was a kid. He recalls how he used to run through the forest to follow his mother secretly and wait for his mom to come back from Akio's place. He remembers the way and runs through the forest like a madman based on his memories. He then recalls that one time his mom got late, so he ran to her working place and found her tied up in an experiment with syringes and test tubes lying all around her. Shiki reaches the same working place and falls to his knees when he recalls all the horrible stuff he witnessed as a child. Nabemaru notices a syringe lying in the empty warehouse and comments that it may be linked with a kimono incident that happened in the past. Nabemaru then explains that long ago, a special kind of healing silk became popular in the human market which could be woven into the organs and even replace cells, and that Inari put a stop on it. He explains that the silk was created by a human by using a kimono's power, and since Inari didn't want the existence of kimono to be known by the public, she put up a stop on the golden silk and blacklisted a person called Akio for its production. Meanwhile, Inugami visits Akio's house where he has a small girl called Aya living with him. Inugami asks Akio to step out to have an adult talk with him. Shiki recalls that he saw his mother in a lot of pain and that someone had then whacked his head, due to which he had become unconscious. He then recalls waking up in Akio's house and Akio telling him that Shiki's mother was sick but she couldn't be treated in a human hospital. He remembers Akio telling him that his mother will come back soon, and he recalls waiting every day for his mother to come back till he stopped asking Akio about her. Shiki then gets up and asks Nabemaru to share all his information with him. Shiki then decides that he will kill Akio, and little brother Kabane tells him that he will support him. Inugami tells Akio that he was the one who was preventing the marketing of his golden silk through Inari. Akio starts to pathetically whine that the golden silk has revolutionized medicine, and Inugami realizes that Akio doesn't feel any guilt for what he has done. He asks Akio how he came to develop the golden silk. Akio narrates his desperate loser tale that after meeting Kumi, he and his brother had come to discover that the Nishikagumo tale was a true reality. And when Shiki's father had died, Kumi had come to him asking for his help to treat Shiki's cold. He tells Inugami that Kumi wanted Shiki to be raised in the human world and that he made an arrangement with her like the whining loser he was that if she would help him in his work, he would raise Shiki in the human world. He then recalls that in order to make a mutant that could produce the golden silk, he made Kumi get clapped with every kind of creature till he finally became successful. Shiki, listening to the whole story through Inugami's phone, arrives on the scene and pulls Akio up on the tree with his silk. He then promises to kill him without making him suffer too much. Akio tries to defend himself, but Shiki tells him to shut his trap. Akio asks Inugami how he could allow the children to kill someone. Just then, Akira arrives at the scene. He whines about being left behind and that he was scared in the dark. A kimono comes up from behind Akira to attack him, and Father Inugami instantly shoots at the kimono. The kimono doesn't back down and attacks again. Inugami blocks him and the kimono bites his arm, in the process infecting him with venom. Another kimono attacks Inugami and his gun disappears as the venom starts to spread. A kimono rushes at him and pulls him and Akira away. Many other kimonos start to appear around them, and Kabane wonders whether they are the forest kimonos. Akio, the desperate creep, tells them that the kimonos are Shiki's siblings who were born during the experimentation with his mom. A kimono cuts off Ayaki's silk, and Akio tells the group that the kimonos possess intelligence and can even speak some words which they learnt from Kumi. The kimonos start to utter words one by one that they love Shiki and they tell him to live longer. Shiki recalls how he used to take baths with his mom, sleep with her, and how she used to tell him that she loves him. The kimonos creepily keep chanting that they love him, and Shiki snaps. He falls down to his knees and starts crying like a wuss. Nabamaru notices that Shiki has lost the will to kill Akio, and he suggests Kabane to take over the matter instead. Kabane tells him to shut it. His hair turned red and he asks big brother Shiki whether he can do anything for him. Shiki asks him to help him and Kabane jumps to action. A kimono jumps at them and Kabane knocks it out to oblivion. Meanwhile, a group of kimonos surround Inugami and Akira. Akira freezes Inugami's arm on his request, and just then, Aya approaches the kimonos. She tells the kimonos to stop their attack and they back down. Inugami asks her who she is and she tells him to follow her. Two kimonos attack Kabane, and Kabane, being the pro killer that he is, butchers them instantly. He tells Akio that he only wants to kill him. A gigantic kimono comes at Kabane, but he tricks the kimono's arm and stabs its eye. The kimono falls down and Nabimaru asks Kabane to help him too. Kabane tells him to handle it himself, and Nabimaru sets the kimonos around him on fire. Kabane then throws his shirt at Shiki and asks him to hold on to it. Shiki whines for the 100th time and tells Kabane to destroy everything that Akio has built. Kabane then rushes at all the kimonos to attack them. Meanwhile, Aya takes Inugami and Akira to a spring and asks Inugami to dip his hand in the water. Inugami dips his hand in the water and his venom disappears. Aya tells Inugami that the spring has detoxifying effects and that kimonos often come here to heal their wounds. She then tells them that she needs their help and then asks them not to kill Akio. She tells Inugami that she has to ask Akio something. Kabane finishes off all the kimonos and throws Akio at Shiki's feet like a badass gangster. He tells Shiki that if he can't kill him, then he'll do it himself. Shiki tells him that he has realized that killing Akio won't bring his family back and that he only wants to meet his dead mother. Aya approaches them and Akio starts to get frantic on seeing her. She tells Akio that he is a disgrace and asks him where he has hidden her cocoon. Akio instead tells her to persuade the others not to kill him or else he won't reveal where the cocoon is. Nabamaru suggests that maybe Aya is Ayaki's daughter, and Shiki doesn't believe this. He recalls that Ayaki's life accomplishments were always his research findings and that he only wanted to leave research behind. Shiki realizes he may know who Aya is, and Aya tells them that she cannot reveal her identity till she has found her cocoon. Inugami suggests finding the cocoon for her. He calls Mihai and asks him about the places Akio frequently used to visit as per his data. Mihai tells them that Akio frequently used to visit 4 places only, including his house, the credit union, his brother's house, and a hot spring where there's skunk cabbage as well. Shiki, who seems to magically remember everything, now recalls that the cabbage were his mom's favorite flowers. Aya runs off towards the mountain on hearing this, and Shiki runs after her. Akio pathetically yells at Aya not to go. Aya reaches the spring and Shiki, coming behind her, tells her not to jump or else she'll drown. Big brother Shiki jumps in the spring. He dives deep in the water and swims to the end where he finds his mother wrapped up in a cocoon. A kimono approaches him in the water. He defeats the kimono and then swims upwards. He asks Aya whether his mom is alive and Aya confirms that she is. Aya then introduces herself as the Golden Webbing. They both take their mom out just as Inugami and the others approach them. Akio starts to rant that he has kept Kumi alive as insurance for Aya, and that due to Aya's golden silk, Kumi hasn't even aged. Akio begins to pathetically whine about the golden silk again, and Shiki punches him. Shiki then asks Inugami to take his mother to a safe place. Kabane asks Shiki whether he is sure about leaving Akio alone, and Shiki replies that he knows Akio wouldn't be able to leave peacefully without his research or any accomplishment. Shiki drags Aya with him and they put their mother into Inugami's car. Kabane notices that Nabamaru is gone and Inugami announces that they are now going to head to Tokyo. The desperate Akio whines that he can start fresh with a new kimono. Nabamaru approaches him and tells him that he had only let him go previously due to goodwill. He shows his true kimono fox face and attacks Akio. Meanwhile, Inugami takes everyone to a clinic and tells the receptionist that he has a special urgent kimono case. An old lady called Granny Ohana opens the gate and welcomes Inugami. Granny tells them that Kumi has a psychological reason due to which she is not waking up and that she will make her something to treat her. She then asks the others to sleep in the clinic due to the late night. The others sleep while big brother Shiki stays behind with his mother. Aya also comes to visit her mom but decides that she has got no right to enter the room. Aya recalls that she could control how to use her silk when she was 3 years old and that her first job was to heal her badly injured mother. She remembers that Akio used to beat her up a lot, but since he couldn't afford to injure her much, he kept her in a basement and even gave her books and clothes. She remembers that she had her mother with her all the time who never woke up much, and that one day she found out she had a brother as well. She then recalls that she wished that her mother would wake up and her brother would come to rescue them so that they could all live together as a family. Shiki tells her to come in the room. In the victim case, Aya asks Shiki why he doesn't hate her since she is the cause of all their sufferings. Shiki tells her that it's because of her that their mom is alive and that while she struggled to save their mom, he was enjoying his life in comfort. He then tells Aya to hold their mother's hand, and at this atrocity their mother opens her eyes. She greets Aya and Shiki and Aya jumps on her in happiness. She tells them that they have both really grown. The others hear about the commotion and come to the room as well. A week later, Inugami tells Kabane and Akira that he has a job for them. Akira comments that it's very quiet without Shiki, and they recall that Shiki had decided to stay at the clinic with his mom till she got better. Big brother Shiki arrives at the office and tells them he's back. He tells the lonely Kabane that he is not leaving till Kabane's parents are found. Aya follows him inside and Shiki tells them that he has to watch over Aya since their mom is out. Aya comments that the place reeks of boys, not that it could have reeked of girls at this point. Aya tells Inugami that she has decided to work with Granny in the clinic and to use her powers to heal people. Shiki protests about it since that's his only job, while Kabane thinks it's okay for her to work. Aya tells Kabane that she finds him cool and she asks him to go out with her. Lonely boy Kabane instantly agrees and big brother Shiki faints at the spot. Kan arrives at the scene and asks Kabane to fight her. Inugami interrupts them and tells them about their next job. He informs them that lately in Harajuku Street, a lot of ladies are getting their faces peeled off in broad light and that it's probably a kimono's doing. Akira faints on hearing this while Aya asks Inugami whether he has contacted any of the victims. She tells Inugami to refer the victims to her clinic and then tells Kabane that she will join him in his job since Shiki and Akira seem to be out cold. Kan gets jealous to see their non-existent bonding and tells them she will join them too. She tells Inugami that she will only observe and won't interfere in their work. The three of them arrive at Harajuku Street and the police let them in the crime scene. Kabane notices a place from where kimono scent is coming and Kan rushes forward to deal with it. Kabane warns her that the kimono goes after females and that he should take the lead. Kan yells at him to not order her around and he apologizes to her. Aya then leads Kabane away in another direction, leaving Kan the jealous maiden behind in frustration. Kan wonders why her heart is feeling so mushy. An invisible voice tells her that she understands how Kan is feeling and that she will deal with it. Meanwhile, something invisible pulls Aya in the air by her hair. Kabane, the hero in white armor, punches the attacker on instinct and it lets Aya go. Kabane catches Aya and Kan runs up to them. A black cloud with random facial parts appears. The black cloud kimono tells the group that her name is Katanashi and that she was attacking people to become a human. She explains that she liked a boy working in Harajuku Street, but the girls always surrounded him, so she decided to take away their faces to become pretty like them. Aya says that Katanashi must be in love, to which Kabane comments that from what he knows, love doesn't involve taking things away but rather giving things. Katanashi remarks that they wouldn't know how she felt and that surely Kan the jealous fox would know. Aya asks Kan what her problem is and Kan's face turns into a fox. Using all of her non-existent brain, she attacks Aya in frustration. Kabane comes in between them and Kan ends up biting Kabane's hand. However, Kabane, being Riz King, tells her to eat him instead and Kan runs away. Kabane and Aya arrive at the office. Aya tells Shiki that she made a cocoon for Katanashi so that she could live as a human and that Katanashi promised not to attack humans anymore. She kisses Kabane cheeks while telling him not to two-time her. With that, she heads back to the clinic while Shiki follows her to see her off. Kabane goes to Kan and shakes Kan's tree till she falls down. He asks her what's wrong and notices that she is crying pathetically. He asks her whether she is hurt and then touches her face to stop her from crying. Kan exclaims that the mushiness she was feeling is gone and that Kabane should always touch her like this if the same feeling ever comes back. Kabane agrees and Kan asks him what she can do to become his #1 girl. Kabane tells her that he doesn't know and that he will tell her if he finds out. Meanwhile, Inugami and Kumi visit the memorial site for Kumi's other kimono children. Inugami tells Kumi to make memories with Shiki and Aya and she thanks him for all his help. Later, Kan arrives at the office where she and Aya argue again. Akira asks Kabane who his #1 is and Kabane the simpleton replies that he only loves Inugami. Akira's brother called Yui collides with a passerby on the street. The passerby's friends stop him and take him to an alley where they tell him to give them money for dry cleaning. Yui asks one guy whether he knows who Inugami is and even shows him a silly-looking drawing. When the guy replies that he doesn't know, Yui puts his hand on the guy's chest and freezes him. In Inugami's office, Akira's toy, which he named after his brothers, gets torn. Nihai fixes the toy for Akira and even installs an AI system in it to entertain him, which is probably the first good thing he's done so far. Yui recalls that Akira and he used to play in the snow in his village, and that Akira used to cry every time he got hurt while he never cried. He recalls that since they were the only two boys born after 100 years, the other women called Yuki-anas used to tend to their every need to keep an eye on them, and that their mother had passed away while their father was locked in a place and was never let out. Over the next few days, the expert Akira messes up all the jobs and all his daily tasks. Shiki yells at him and tells him not to do anything. Kabane tells Akira that it doesn't bother him if Akira is a useless klutz since he has always been like this. Akira writes a farewell note to both of them and runs away from the office. He takes his AI toy with him and tells himself that he will look for his brother. The AI toy suggests Akira to sleep in the airport, and just then, Yui passes by him in the street. Yui stops and Akira notices that it's his brother. In the past, Akira and Yui find somebody's bag and look inside to discover magazines and other accessories. They read the magazine and find out about Tokyo. Yui tells Akira that they will go to Tokyo one day to get away from their village. He also tells him that he's heard of a kimonoist called Inugami and maybe they'll go to him too. In the present, Akira informs Yui that he has run away from Inugami's office. Using his leftover money, Akira buys Yui a crepe since Yui likes sweet things, and Yui, the world's nicest brother, tells Akira to eat the crepe himself. He then tells Akira that they have to look for a place to live in. Shiki and Kabane finish all the work. Inugami shows Kabane the notes Akira left behind and asks Kabane whether he really thinks Akira is a good-for-nothing. Kabane tells him that he thinks so and that he doesn't mind if Akira is useless. Inugami then decides to leave the matter be. Shiki gets bored and asks Kabane to do something. Kabane comments that Akira usually has good ideas on what to do, and Shiki replies that it's too bothersome to call Akira. Yui takes Akira to a park and asks him what kind of house he would like to live in. Akira tells him that he'd like to live in an ice castle. Big brother Yui then uses his powers and builds an ice castle. Akira rushes inside and swoons over everything. He asks Yui to have a bath, a bed, and a chandelier too. He then starts to take pictures of the castle to update his social media, and Yui freezes his phone. The drama queen tells Yui that he will die if he doesn't update his social media. Yui ignores him and tells him that he will build the rest of things after finding food for them. He then conjures a frozen locked door and heads out. Akira realizes that he's been locked inside the castle. Shiki tries to make beef stew and burns it instead. Kabane advises him on how to improve, and Shiki gets mad at him for all his preaching. Kabane asks Shiki whether he is mad, and Shiki tells him that he will snap if Kabane keeps pestering him any longer. Kabane then goes out to buy food and realizes that without Akira, he doesn't know what Shiki is thinking. He arrives back in the office. He tells Shiki that the useless Akira was good for something after all, and that it was because of Akira that they never had problems before. Shiki admits that he may scold Akira a bit too much, so Kabane and he decide to go get Akira. Inugami notices that an ice castle is going viral on social media. He rushes to the castle with Shiki and Kabane and comes across many news reporters reporting about the castle. He thinks to himself that Inari can deal with the reporters later. Just then, Yui steps out of the castle and a reporter asks Yui about the castle. Being the wild animal he is, Yui begins to attack the reporter and Inugami shoots at him. All the reporters rush away, and the group notice that Yui has blocked Inugami's bullet with ice. Kabane points out a stone around Yui's neck. Professor Inugami explains that the stone is a null stone which has kimono power embedded in, and that the stone can be used to bring death. Inugami then asks Yui what's happening in his village since the null stone cannot be taken out of the snow village. Yui thanks Inugami for taking care of Akira. Kabane warns Shiki not to engage with Yui since silk and ice is not good match. Kabane tells Yui that they are Akira's friends and asks him whether Akira is inside the castle. Meanwhile, Akira watches the ice castle trending through the AI toy's video projection. He wonders what could be wrong with his brother, and the AI toy tells him that Yui's temperature around his heart is very low, which may be affecting his mental and physical self. Yui barges in and asks who Akira is talking to. Akira tells the AI toy to be quiet and then follows Yui down. He then becomes shocked to see Kabane and the others frozen in ice. Akira asks Yui about his frozen friends, and Yui tells him that since he couldn't let Akira out, he froze his friends and brought them in. Akira falls to his knees and Mother Yui tells him that he will bring mint for his stomach. Yui heads out and the AI toy tells Akira that his friends are still alive. Akira, being the brightest bulb in the room, realizes that Kabane cannot die by being frozen. AI toy tells Akira that the rest of his friends have their internal body temperatures maintained, due to which they have not died as well. Yui recalls that in the past, he was made the village chief and that he then got to know that the nullstone caused the storm around the village. He remembers that the Yuki-ana all used to wear clothes in front of their faces so that nobody would be preferred based on their looks, but because of it, jealousy, and envy started rising among the women. He recalls that the life as a chief was full of hatred and corruption, but at the end of the day, whenever he went to sleep, Akira would be there, and Akira would be his salvation, probably the most useful Akira has ever been. In the present, Akira tells Yui that he needs salt for his bath, and Yui heads out to bring salt for him. Yui again locks the door as he heads out. Akira realizes he is the only one who can save his friends. Inari arrives outside the ice castle with Nobamaru and compliments at the beauty of the castle. She tells Nobamaru that the nullstone feeds off of life, and Nobamaru notices that there's no fresh grass in the surrounding of the ice castle. Inari wonders what Inugami might be up to. Meanwhile, Akira wonders how he can melt his friends. The ice seems frozen and he is unable to do anything. Just then, Kabane's frozen statue starts to melt. He keeps melting and suddenly jumps out from the ice. Kabane wears his pants and tells Akira about the nullstone. Akira comments that he had heard things about the nullstone, but he can't seem to remember much now, and Kabane insists that Akira should try to remember about the nullstone to help him beat Yui. Akira thinks that all of his friends will die if they go against Yui. Kabane apologizes to Akira for calling him a useless klutz and tells him that he likes the office better when Akira is with them. He then tells Akira that Shiki probably feels the same. Akira's switch suddenly flips. He tells Kabane that he had asked Yui to freeze all of them because he wanted to live alone with Yui peacefully. He then throws the AI toy away. Kabane asks Akira why he is lying. Akira tells him that he has always felt this way and that he hates all of them. Yui returns with the salt and Akira gets in between him and Kabane. Akira tells Yui that he has grown tired of the ice castle and that he now wants a castle with a view of the ocean. Yui throws the salt down and he and Akira then head out. On the AI toy's instructions, Kabane pours salt over the frozen bodies of Inugami and Shiki. He then puts the toy in Inugami's arm so that the toy's heat can melt the frozen statues. Just then, Inari approaches Kabane. She tells him that she has not come for his lifestone and asks Kabane whether he will help her in retrieving the nullstone. She tells him that the nullstone is also connected with Kabane's parents, and so it should interest Kabane as well. Akira walks with Yui and tells him that it's been a while since they took a walk like this. In the past, Akira and Yui stroll through the village, and Yui asks Akira whether his chiefly duties are really hard. He explains that Yui always looks gloomy and that he wants to help him. Yui, never the one to back away from the truth, tells Akira that he is weak while he is strong and therefore he can tolerate all the hardships. He then tells Akira that he should do the only thing that he is good at, which is to keep smiling and to always remain pure. Akira teases him that he is not pure since he even peed in the bed in the morning. Yui realizes that Akira may have become an adult after all and that he should do something before the village women may discover that Akira is an adult and try to taint him just like what they did to him. The drama king Yui gathers all the women and tells them to let Akira leave the village or else he will kill himself. They allow this and Yui bids Akira goodbye. He tells Akira to find Inugami and that he will join him in Tokyo soon. Just as Akira leaves, Yui discovers that the Yuki Onna has sent someone after Akira and that Akira won't survive. He confronts them and they restrain him. He runs away outside and the Yuki Onna chase after him to capture him. In the present, Yui senses somebody approaching and he puts up an ice cage around Akira. Nobamaru arrives at the scene and Yui throws an ice ball at him. Nobamaru dodges the attack and then turns fully into a fox to fight Yui. Meanwhile, Inugami convinces Kabane to go help Akira through the AI toy and tells him that he himself will melt soon. Kabane runs away towards Akira and the desperate creep Inari comments slyly that she'll show Inugami how to make good use of the children. Nobamaru makes copies of himself and rushes at Yui, but Yui throws ice spikes at him, butchering his imposter copies. The real Nobamaru runs at Yui to attack him and Yui throws ice spike at him too. Nobamaru and Yui continue to fight. Akira calls out to Yui and just as Yui gets distracted, Nobamaru jumps at Yui to snatch away the nullstone. The stone repels him and he jumps back. His hand starts to break down from where he touched the stone. Yui comments that Nobamaru's Kitsune race can't benefit from the cold nature of stone. Nobamaru retreats behind a tree. He realizes that Inari must have known he can't touch the stone and starts to curse Inari. He thinks of how to retrieve the stone and Yui spots him. He throws ice spikes at Nobamaru and Nobamaru jumps away to dodge them. Kabane, being local hero, arrives on the scene and kicks away Nobamaru so that the attack doesn't hit him. Akira's head gets stuck in the cage bars like the world-famous klutz he is. Meanwhile, Kabane sets himself on Nobamaru's fire and rushes at Yui. He punches Yui and Yui realizes that his ice is starting to melt. He then grabs a hold of Yui and Yui generates ice spikes which make Kabane jump away. Yui uses the nullstone's power and generates ice armor similar to Nobamaru's fire. Kabane attacks Yui and Yui blocks him. Meanwhile, Akira realizes that he can use the fog around him to create ice. He creates a block of ice that falls on the cage and the cage breaks. Kabane and Yui continue to fight and Kabane realizes that Yui's ice is stronger than his fire. Nobamaru tells Kabane that if he makes the flame any hotter, Kabane won't be able to regenerate properly. Kabane on a nice guy mission tells Nobimaru to make the fire hotter just for a while. Nobimaru heats up Kabane even more and Kabane rushes at Yui again. He lands blow after blow on Yui and Yui's armor starts to break. Kabane starts to fall down due to the damage from the fire, and Nobimaru, the biggest cheerleader from the sidelines, yells at him to land one final blow on Yui. Kabane rushes at Yui to finish him off, and just then, Akira jumps in between them. Kabane finally gets burnt to a toast and falls down. Yui pulls Akira towards him and Akira notices that Yui's hands and face are starting to break. Nobimaru picks up Kabane's head casually like it's the most normal thing to do. He explains to Akira that the Nullstone takes life to generate power, and that Akira has used the stone in exchange for his life, so soon Akira will wither away and die. Kabane tells Nobimaru that Yui is Akira's brother, so he cannot die. Akira jumps to action, which is a miracle coming from him. He grabs the Nullstone and starts to pull it towards him. He yells at Yui that they are twins, and as twins he should share his pain and despair with him. The Nullstone begins to glow, and Akira starts to see Yui's memories from when he was chased in the village. In Yui's memories, Yui escapes the village and runs away to the shrine where the Nullstone is kept. He thinks to himself that if males are born after every 100 years in the village, then it must be God's way of telling the village that it should die. Yui begs the Nullstone to hear his cries. Suddenly the Nullstone begins to glow and then it releases a burst of power into the sky. Akira sees every memory and Kabane rushes to his side to help him. Kabane spits his own life stone at the Nullstone. Both the stones collide and release a wave of power which shatters the ice castle. Yui gets free from the Nullstone and both the stones merge together to form a new stone. Inari, always the first one to take advantage of everything, arrives at the scene and picks up the new stone. She tells Nobimaru that the Life Stone must be counteracting against Nullstone's power. Inugami approaches them with Shiki. He tells Inari to hand over the stone to Kabane since it belongs to him. She argues with him but then hands the stone over to Kabane. She heads away with Nobimaru. Yui gets taken to Aya's clinic and Akira tells Kabane that he was lying about hating everyone. He then tells him that he loves him, shocking Kabane into oblivion. Yui later thanks Kabane for beating the heck out of him. He tells Inugami that he had given himself over to the Nullstone's power, and when he had woken up, everything was white and the Snow Village was gone. Kabane asks him about the Nullstone. Yui explains that the Snow Village was created 1,000 years ago to probably enshrine the Nullstone, and then asks Kabane whether he knows about the kimono incident. Professor Inugami explains that kimono incidents refer to a war between kimonos and humans thousands of years ago which caused many deaths and destruction, due to which the kimonos rectified history and changed their way of living to coexist with human. Yui tells them that back then, powerful kimonos imbued kimono stones with their powers and passed the stone to their descendants to preserve the balance of power and to restrain each other. He then tells Kabane that his father must be a powerful kimono chief if Kabane was given the stone, and Inugami discusses that they can use the fused kimono stone to track Kabane's parent now. Inari tells Nobimaru that she still plans to get both the stone in her creepy sly way, and Nobimaru replies that they have the right person to do that. Akira tells Yui not to take on all the guilt by himself since he himself was partially responsible for everything too. When Yui doesn't listen, Akira slaps him and whines that it makes him sad when Yui keeps him away from doing things. Akira tells Yui that they will be together now, and Yui replies that they can share the crepes that Akira likes so much. Yui then apologizes to Akira for everything. Nobimaru meets Khan and tells her that Inari has given her a mission to win Kabane over and get his kimono stone from him without using any force. Akira decides to heads off with Yui for a trip where Yui intends to reevaluate himself. He bids the gang farewell. Inugami also plans to go for a trip to Shikoku where he used to live to find a clue about the kimono stone, while Shiki decides to stay behind. Kabane and Inugami put their luggage in the car. Just as Kabane mentions Khan's name, Khan, who isn't very bright, jumps out. She tells them that she is going to Shikoku too. Inugami figures out that Inari must have sent Khan to follow them, but he still allows her to come along. The three of them then head towards Shikoku. Will Kabane find a clue about his parents and the kimono stone, or will Inari finally get her hands on the stone? Comment your thoughts below and subscribe to the channel for more content.